Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the Space Show. Today is a very special episode because
Very special.
we've been looking forward to this one. It's the last episode of the animated series. This week, your host, Lieutenant Commander Rebecca Frost, and Admiral Kerry Jackson, we were talking about all of season 2 of Star Trek, the animated series, and thank God. Listen, I know I said we had to do it, and I don't regret it, but boy, it was tough.
At the same time, you do regret it. In your studies, did you find out why season 2 is only, 6 episodes? Or
They canceled it because of low ratings.
so does that mean that there's possibly some episodes that haven't aired out there, or
Some lost episodes. I don't know.
or did they crank these things out so quickly that was it?
Let's see. Are there lost episodes of
The animated series?
Star
Please say
Trek,
no,
the
because I'm done.
animated series?
Please let the answer be no.
The first big Google result, there was no lost animated Star Trek episode produced.
Thank you.
Everything that I have found is just like it just got canceled because of low ratings, and it's, you know what, that's fine. It's not like Gene Roddenberry was excited about the show anyway, you know. Kind of an interesting, it was interesting because it was a show that wasn't really catered to children, but not like not really for adults. So like, who was this show for?
I mean, I was a kid and a fan, and I didn't like it when it was on.
Those rose-colored glasses really came off after the first 6 episodes for me. And it's fine. You know what? I'm glad we did it. Then we never have to do it again.
Yeah, and I can say I've seen it now. So that's the other thing. And these last 6, they were okay, and there were some that had some interesting stuff in them. So
some interesting stuff. So the episodes we're talking about: season 2, the Pirates of Orion, Bem, the Practical Joker, Albatross, How Sharper Than a Serpent's Tooth, and the Counterclock Incident. They're all interesting premises. So the Pirates of Orion, Spock contracts a fatal illness, and the cure can only be found with dangerous Orion pirates. Them Orions, I personally love that Lower Decks has really taken the Orion culture and run with it.
But is this the Orions? Because they kept referring to them as the Orions.
You know what? If you're gonna be so pedantic about the pronunciation, just kidding.
They didn't look like Orions. They
were green.
They were a hue of green.
And they're pirates. Like I just have to assume, because everything we know about Orions is that they're pirates. And what I think is so hilarious about Lower Decks too is they're like, oh no, there can't be like scientist Orions. And I'm like, then how are your ships built, my guys?
How do you?
Yeah, no, they steal them. That's how they do it. This episode was written by Howard Weinstein, and he was only 19 years old, making him the youngest writer in the Star Trek universe. He adapted a short story that he had written for his high school science fiction magazine and mailed it to the show's producers.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that A, explains a lot, and B, good for him. Way to go.
Yeah, it really, do you know what it reminds me of? When I was in high school, the kid who wrote Aragon was we were like the same age.
Oh, yeah?
You know that book, the books, there's like a dragon. It doesn't matter. He was a teenager who got a fantasy book published. And let me tell you, I was insanely jealous because I was writing and my parents didn't own a publishing company, so I couldn't just get a book published. But that's kind of like the vibes I get from this kid. Like, oh, you think you're better than us because you got a Star Trek written? Maybe it's just me.
Yeah, this one was the whole point of it was the serum is our MacGuffin, and we have to get the MacGuffin. And
and Kirk, he basically does a, hey Google, what's the nearest place that I can get this drug? Asks the ship, and the ship is like, oh, the nearest place is this place, and the Orions have it. And Kirk is like, please, my husband, he's very ill.
Yes.
And And the whole thing about this is like everybody else is like pretty immune to it, but Spock's blood is copper based, and so the infection enters the bloodstream and encases the cells so that they cannot carry any oxygen, and the patient suffocates to death. Can you imagine a more painful death than suffocating because your blood can't carry oxygen?
I mean, other than shark attack, that's certainly up there.
Shark attack? Being suffocated because my blood can't carry any oxygen.
Wood chipper and the blood, yeah.
Yeah. McCoy says, why couldn't you have red blood like any normal human? Because he's not a normal human, McCoy, and I think you know this.
I can't decide whether McCoy's racist or not.
I don't think McCoy's racist. I think he's just mean. I think he's just mean.
You think he's just an asshole?
I think he's just an asshole.
Could be. I mean, is this the episode at the end where he's begging Spock to say that human blood is superior or something like that? Was it
probably.
this episode or an upcoming episode?
Oh, I think it is this episode.
Because all of these run together, yeah.
But like McCoy, my God, rein it in. And I also do have a note, Orion, that, yeah, they do pronounce it so weird. But I don't know. I mean, they fix him. That's...
Of course.
Everyone lives happy.
We knew they
everyone
would. Yeah.
lives happily ever after.
Yeah.
The next episode, Bem.
Oh.
The Enterprise crew is taken captive by a race of primitives on a newly discovered planet. This episode, the way they refer to this planet's people as like primitives and aboriginals, and like just gives off like very savage vibes, like Killers of the Flower Moon vibes,
colonizer type vibes.
Yeah, ooh.
And they were lizard people.
Yeah,
who had shame and wore clothing.
How could I mean, they're good Christian folk, honestly.
Exactly. Well, God, they had a god.
This group of episodes, I like it when Kirk bests a god. You know,
always. I don't think that there's and that's coming up in our adventures, my dear. I don't think that there's a god that he hasn't defeated. So.
This episode was a rejected plot outline for the 3rd season of Star Trek, and would love to know how, because their friend Bem, who has taken them to this planet, he's the detachable kid. His body just separates in places.
He separates from the waist, and then his lower half has arms. And then just his regular arm will float away, and his head will just float away. Although, remember, these characters appeared on Lower Decks as well.
They did?
Yes. In season 1 or 2. I can't remember which season, but these characters showed up, and I went, what the? And then I saw online that, oh no, this is a callback to the animated series, this character that could separate himself into pieces. Like,
I don't remember this, but anyway, it doesn't matter. The detachable kid, he just is so sneaky with all of his moving parts, you know.
But he's being a jerk to allegedly test Captain Kirk to see if he's worthy of a relationship with his planet or some shit like that.
There's one of my biggest pet peeves in life is secretly being tested. And when that air quotes reveal happened, I was like, oh, this... I take back all. You can't be part of the Federation. I take it all back. Rescinded. Yeah. Offer rescinded.
There was points where if I were Kirk there, I'd just go, you know what? Forget it. I don't care. They can bust me down back to, corporal or whatever. I don't care. I've had it with you. Stay on this damn planet with the lizard people. Good luck with that. You know?
And the other thing too, I'm just quickly revisiting a summary of this episode, because this is one of those episodes where I'm like, the guy detaches and that's all I've retained. The detachable kid, he wants to kill himself because he's so ashamed of what he's done.
After the tests and everything, and
this is abusive.
He realizes Yeah.
behavior.
He realized he screwed up and he's like, oh, I might as well die now.
This is such abusive behavior. If you're with somebody and you want to leave that person and they threaten to kill themselves to stop you from leaving, just go. Just go. Like, and so they leave in the planet. They just say, you know what, planet? We're okay, bye-bye. We're never ever coming back here. They're Talos 4, essentially. Like, you don't
Yeah.
ever come back here.
Yeah, that's what the Nichelle Nichols voice god said. Don't ever come back. Everything's fine. We got this. Go away. You and Bem are jerks. Get out of here. Go.
God. Just
Yeah, this episode I was yelling at the TV and
I'm dying. I'm just dying that this was a rejected plot outline for season 3.
Well, it was clearly rejected for budgetary reasons. I don't know how you create a practical, because you remember, we're not, it's there's no computer graphics yet. How do you do a practical effect of a character like Bem? How do you do that?
No, right?
Even if it's just a guy without the, because this guy, he had it like a cat face and some stuff. But even if it's just a guy, how do you do that separation thing?
I'm imagining, like a horse costume that requires 2 people and one person's the butt.
There you go.
Something like that. In the commentary track of the DVD, on the DVD of this episode, David Gerald said the original premise of the show was Spock is very logical and his emotions are under control. What if Spock were prejudiced against something? It would have to be a logical reason for prejudice. It would have to be someone who is very, very illogical.
And this guy certainly is.
This fucking guy.
Yeah.
I like that concept of like, hey, what if Spock was racist towards one thing?
Hey, listen, I'm racist against this guy. Okay, I don't like anything about him.
I'll say it. I don't think this guy should be allowed anywhere near our children or schools.
I'm done with him. Yes.
This is also the first time that Captain James T. Kirk's middle name of Tiberius, a name first listed in written Star Trek guides, is revealed on screen. Although Star Trek the Animated Series was not considered canon by Gene Roddenberry, many writers of the later series helped to canonize several of the show's elements, and the name Tiberius was finally confirmed in Star Trek VI, Undiscovered Country.
Oh, and General Chang says it so deliciously because it's a trial. It's a trial, I'll tell you that. And
I got so excited I swallowed my spit.
General Chang is one of my favorite Star Trek villains, and it's a trial, and he's interrogating, and he goes, James Tiberius Kirk. Oh, it's coming up. I can't wait for it. Anyway.
David Gerald would jokingly tell fans that Tiberius was a reference to Robert Graves' I, Claudius. The name spread amongst the fans, and Gerald added it to the script after approval from Roddenberry. The movie Star Trek 2009 would later provide a backstory to the origin of the name. Tiberius was Kirk's paternal grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
How cute.
That's the JJ verse.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Moving on to the cheekiest episode of the bunch, The Practical Joker. A strange energy field causes the Enterprise computer to play practical jokes on the crew, but the humor soon turns to danger.
Now, you said Bem was a rejected live-action script. This one should have been a live-action script. You could have easily...
should have absolutely have been a live-action.
Yes.
Because this is also the first appearance of a holodeck. It's called the Recreation Deck. Some consider this as the prototype of the holodeck used in Star Trek The Next Generation and all the other shows. None of the feature films with the original series cast used the Recreation Deck ever again.
There's a really primitive one you'll see it in the motion picture coming up. There's a very primitive gaming area. In the next movie, the next thing that you'll be watching, and it's so almost retro looking. It's frightening. Not even close to a holodeck, but anyway.
But yeah, there's a bacteria that gets on the ship while they're in the midst of a chase with the Romulans or something. And the bacteria makes the ship pretty cheeky.
Because we all know how bacteria affects,
Mm-hmm.
electronics and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it gives them like personalities.
Weird.
And makes them rude. Like they would ask the ship to do something. Like they would ask the ship a question, and the ship says, "That's for me to know, and you to never find out." Like, damn. Okay.
But this is where the legendary Kirk is a jerk comes from.
Kirk is a jerk. I want the shirt.
Well, when I was watching this, I was like, I may break down and buy that shirt. It's in the Star Trek shop at StarTrek.com.
It's just a funny little goof. It's just a silly little prank. And also follow-up question, the because the ship is being so cheeky, it plans to poison everyone with laughing gas so that they all just like die laughing. Do they have laughing gas on the ship?
No. But
or is that something
right.
created with
Devil's
the
advocate? Yeah, the replicator could possibly make laughing gas. Or you could synthesize it probably in sick bay. I'm only being devil's advocate there. I thought it was kind of silly too,
so
but
cheeky.
it also seemed like this would be perfect for a live action episode.
This honestly would be such a great one, because there's a great moment where Scotty goes to the replicator to get some kind of nasty sandwich. He orders like a pastrami something, or I think, that's my opinion on pastrami, and it just keeps like flinging food out, like, oh, what a harmless little prank.
I would have loved to have seen live action James Doohan trying to stop sandwiches and things from flooding the cafeteria.
And they all get stuck in the recreation deck, and the ship turns it into an Arctic landscape, and so they're going to die laughing, freezing to death. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then to wrap it all up, to fix it, the bacteria finds its way onto the Romulan ship, and they just go, their problem now, and bye, credits roll.
Directed by Hal Sutherland.
Kind of insane that I mean, I just don't know much about the Romulans, but I wouldn't purposefully try to like give my enemy a virus. Maybe that's just me.
The Romulans are kind of, or as the Klingons refer to the Romulans, they are without honor. You'll learn more about the Romulans in the Next Generation. They really explore the Romulans a lot in the Next Generation.
Because I feel like, currently I'm just lacking in Romulan knowledge. I just know that they're not ideal.
You just need to know that they are somehow distantly related to Vulcans. Mm-hmm. They maintained their savagery where the Vulcans abandoned it. Mm-hmm. So they appear similar. That's why in the original series you saw the submarine episode where we got our first look at a Romulan. Everybody saw the Romulan, and they all turned and looked at Spock like, "What the hell?"
Yeah, and Spock does the collar tug. Ooh. Well, that's fine. Kirk is a jerk. Get the shirt, StarTrek.com. Albatross. Dr. McCoy is arrested for allegedly causing a deadly plague which once ravaged the planet Dramia. War criminal McCoy.
Which, now this one I thought was another one I would have liked to have seen live action, but it wasn't a horrible Star Trek episode.
I thought it was... Yeah, pretty interesting. There was a really great line where, they're going down to the planet because, what is even the plot of this episode? They are going to...
Well, there are the two planets, and they were related somehow. And the one planet was affected by plague, and they just kind of abandoned everybody there. And the other planet was not. And the other planet, the planet that was not affected by the plague, wanted to join the Federation. They said, okay, yeah, we'll join the Federation. Everything's cool. Oh, by the way, we have to arrest Dr. McCoy for war crimes. What? Well, because he was here a dozen years ago.
19 years ago.
Yeah.
So they're headed to planet Dramia, but 19 years ago on Dramia 2, McCoy implemented a vaccine and then left a massive plague and killed most of the people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there's a warrant for his arrest and they have no choice but to comply.
Yeah. It's like,
And
now
I'm
you're a
like,
Federation member. We're all abiding by the rules. Oh, by the way, the Federation approved this whole thing. So, sorry to spring that on you now. But yeah, so it's we got to prove McCoy is innocent, so it's one of those old TV episodes where we have to go on an adventure to prove our friend's innocence, and.
Yeah, and there's a really great line in this episode where they beam down to the planet and it is deserted as hell, right? Like, it just does not look like a very fruitful planet, and they say so. And Demos, I think, who is the man, he says, "Plagues seldom leave behind fields of flowers." That was one of those lines that I was like, ooh. That's a spicy Star Trek. That's a very good line. Also, this pandemic killed hundreds of people. Awfully small number for a big planet. And there's only like one guy left.
Yeah.
Maybe they just don't have overpopulation.
Maybe they don't. Or maybe it was a colony that they were starting. Who knows? But
yeah. This is also the episode with the famous GIF that people will share when Kirk looks like, oh, so shocked, and he'll like cover his mouth with his hand like, oh, who could have predicted? This is that episode where it is from. Also, this installment apparently contradicts the writer and director's guide for Star Trek, which describes McCoy as having joined Starfleet only in middle age after he was divorced, and that means he couldn't have worked on Dramia 2 during his early adulthood. Since this was never definitively stated on screen, there is some wiggle room.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't think about that when I was watching that, because I've always just heard that McCoy joined Starfleet late because of his wife's divorce. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll go with that, though.
Yeah, maybe he was on a rogue mission and
or maybe he was with Doctors Without Borders or something.
Doctors Without Borders, and he was trying some experimental vaccine and he just happened to kill a lot of people. But it's okay because they figure out a solution to the original plague and they let him go.
Yeah.
No punishment at all for killing hundreds and hundreds of people.
Well, it wasn't his fault.
Yeah.
No. So
it's never, if I know one thing about these white men on Star Trek, it is never, ever their fault. Which is this is an interesting segue. How sharper than a serpent's tooth, a mysterious being threatens to destroy the Enterprise if the crew is unable to solve an ancient puzzle. Again, real big colonizer vibes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean that was the theme of this one,
Mm-hmm.
But it also, again, it does that whole, guess what? There's no God. They're aliens. They came and visited.
And humans, dummies, so many gods visiting Earth. I wonder if there was like a gods message board and everyone's like, there's this planet. They're gullible as hell. You can go do whatever you want. And a lot of power-hungry characters like Adonis and now Kukulkan was there, inspired the Egyptians and the Aztecs and the Mayans, and that's why they all built pyramids.
Now, Kukulkan, which Shatner refused to say properly, he was saying Kukulkan.
God.
The whole time. But anyway, Kukulkan. Go back and watch Wakanda Forever, Prince Namor.
Oh, yeah. I'm very pleased to hear that in the year 2270, American indigenous peoples are still around, and even they are granted jobs in Starfleet, because you have Ensign Walking Bear, voiced by James Doohan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, James Doohan's doing all the voices for extra characters. I mean, he's good. He's not that good because I can hear it, but
yeah, it's just wild to live in the year 2023 when that absolutely would not fly. And I also can't say the name.
Kukulkan.
Kukulkan. I guess he does this thing where he goes to a bunch of other places and persuades the people to build cities. And if they figure that out, he's like essentially domesticated them and they all live in peace. But humans on Earth were the only ones who just could not do it. And again, why do people want to be humans? And so
we suck.
and so they go. So Kukulkan has a ship. Is that my understanding? He's got like his own ship.
Yeah, he's or he is the ship, or.
But he abducts our members of the crew and tells them to build a city and figure out the riddle, and then he can free them. So essentially, ancient Egypt and the Aztecs and the Mayans were all just building ancient escape rooms. And if they could figure that out, then they could live peacefully and in harmony. But they couldn't. So now we just have pyramids.
I wonder if there are any Native Americans who have a take on this episode, if they're happy to be included, or if they're like, this is screwed up.
Yeah, because it kind of feels like it's all taking all of these ancient cultures and civilizations and just kind of mushing them together and not appreciating their separate eccentricities. The plot point about whatever, actually being an alien life form was inspired by the Eric von Daniken book Chariots of the Gods, especially claims like the Indian sites in Peru having actually been created by aliens as methods of communication.
Yeah, it's one of those theories.
Which we also talk about with ancient Egypt a lot too. The general conspiracy theorists.
You can say the internet.
The internet, believe pyramids were built, which is true. They do align with the stars in some certain ways, but they are created for alien communication and blah 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 blah.
But what? Because those people couldn't be smart enough to do that themselves? Come on.
As we've learned, no.
I always hate that about those theories about how these ancient civilizations were helped by aliens, and I'm like, really? You're saying that they weren't smart enough to do this themselves? I think they'd have figured it out.
Honestly, though, have you met people? I'm just throwing it out there.
All right.
Yeah, they figure it out. They get out of there,
Yeah,
they free the space cats because he's got like a menagerie of space cats.
That's why I thought you'd love this episode. It's got a menagerie. You love menageries.
I do. I love a menagerie of space cats, and they get freed or whatever, and blah blah blah.
And for some reason, one of these cats carries a 2,000-volt charge. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The last episode of Star Trek the Animated Series, the counterclock incident, an unusual spaceship pulls the Enterprise into a negative universe where time seems to flow backwards. It's Star Trek Babies!
Which it was. It was at one point. It's Star Trek Babies. They animated Star Trek Babies.
Oh, God. The concept of this episode is absolutely insane. This episode introduces the character of Robert April, a character from the unused Star Trek, the original series scripts. Due to Gene Roddenberry's later request that the animated series not be considered canon, however, it has never been made part of the official Star Trek continuity that Captain April was the first captain of the USS Enterprise, NCC-1701.
But he is in Strange New Worlds. Which
is why I got so excited. I'm like, Robert April, the Robert April.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm gonna
need
canon,
Gene. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna need you to do some explaining to me because Robert April is credited as the first captain of the USS Enterprise. But then who is Scott Bakula? Is he the first?
Well, that was a different ship.
That was a different ship.
That's the NX-01. Yeah, that was a different ship.
Okay.
So this is the Constitution class Enterprise, and it was Robert April and then Pike, I believe.
Yeah, from what Kirk. I saw, it's Robert April then Pike. But I just got so confused because I was like, well, doesn't Scott Bakula pilot the or doesn't he captain the
He
Enterprise?
he captains the Enterprise, but it's a different ship, and it's the NX-01.
Yes. Oh my God! How does anyone keep track of this?
It's hard. And anyone who claims that they can on their own in their mind is lying, because there's so much. There's just so much of it.
As we have discovered, pages and pages and pages of information about Star Trek.
Listen, I'm a Star Trek fan, but if I don't know something, I'll admit it.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. They get a transmission, but it's backwards. So Kirk tells Uhura to play that devil music backwards, and there's a secret message hidden. And something about two novas exploding at the same place in these two different universes. And this other universe is backwards. So like space is white and the stars are black, and people live a Benjamin Button lifestyle where they're born old and they die as babies. And I am dying to know the logistics of that.
I mean, there's a whole womb situation.
There's got to be a whole womb situation, and especially because Carla 5 and her son Carl 4 it's hilarious. She's like, this is my son Carl 4, and he's this old guy who also knows everything already because he was born old. Again, I'm dying to know the logistics of all of this. But because Robert April, he's a Commodore now, they're transporting him to his retirement ceremony, and he does not want to retire. The man is like, I do not want to retire. And his wife, who is also there with him, who was a former chief medical officer on the Enterprise, thank God they were older than the rest of the crew, because once the crew starts regressing, they become teenagers. Robert April and his wife become regular adults, and they're like, oh my God, we have to take control of this ship, because also as you get younger, you forget everything. So Kirk is trying to ask Uhura to do a thing, and she's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And they just revert to babies. And
so, two things. First of all, Robert April and his wife, they work together. Now listen, I love my wife. I don't want to go to work with her.
Yeah. My husband, he's like, hey, my company's hiring. And I'm like, oh, no, thank you.
No. And secondly, this is the episode where it's old people are valuable.
Yeah, respect your elders, etc., etc.
Because while the Star Trek babies are everywhere, Robert April's a good-looking, 20-something-year-old guy, and he's able to do Enterprise stuff, so he saves the day.
He's having the time of his life, reliving his glory days, and they get back into the regular universe. Everything is fixed as it usually is, but the crew is still babies, and so they're like, how do we they just pop them in the transporter, because the transporter has copies of them.
So many questions.
Again, dying to know the logistics of everything in this episode.
Why is Dr. McCoy necessary? Can't we just send you through the transporter young and healthy, and then say you get shot? Stick you in the transporter, fix you, you're young and healthy again.
Well, I mean, but then what about people who they beam aboard for the first time and they're already sick? You don't have a copy of that person in their healthy state.
Yeah. But allegedly there's a filter on the transporter to get rid of
every
bugs.
Day. Every year, Dr. McCoy has to go through a performance review, and every year he has to defend his position there on the Starship Enterprise.
Yeah. Anyway, I took that recording at the beginning of this episode where it was backwards.
Oh.
And I played it actually backwards. And you want to hear what it says?
Yeah.
Let me play it for you.
Rise from the dead in the name of Satan.
There you go. It was. Anyway.
Well, but then Robert April and his wife are given the opportunity to live again as youthful people.
You take that.
Take it. Because he is like, no, I'm good. I lived my best life with you, and I'm done. And
Well, maybe here's your chance to live another best life
Do
with
it
maybe
again,
someone
my
else.
man.
Someone that you don't work with.
This is Old Man's War. There's a book series called Old Man's War where you get old and you get the opportunity to get your consciousness put into a younger body so you can go fight in the space war.
Oh.
Go do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd do that.
But again, this is the same thing. If I was given the opportunity to be immortal, I would take it in a heartbeat. And this is a stepping stone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I agree. Huge mistake. Huge.
Anyway. But it was interesting to see, the whole Robert April thing, and that was cool to have a character like that introduced. Even though Gene, sorry, it's canon now, from the grave. Sorry.
Yeah, get over it, Gene.
Yeah. So we finished the animated series.
We did it. High fives all around. Woo, 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 woo. If you have been skipping these episodes because you're just wanting regular Star Trek, come on back. Because next episode, we're moving into the movies. We have got an upcoming 6 episodes where each episode will talk about its respective motion picture. So next week we're going to talk about 1979 Star Trek the Motion Picture, and Carrie is very, very excited.
I am very excited because first of all, it's my favorite version of the Enterprise. I love it. And second of all, let me show you this. This is the phaser. We're gonna go from this to these. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see.
Oh, I like the old ones.
I do too.
I'm scared to watch 1979 Star Trek because I like the old one. I don't like all these fancy new sleek designs.
Well, again, this sleek design, that's as far as they go as far as the phaser. That's like as far as they go with it in these movies. Then of course Next Gen comes along and you get that weird looking a TV remote thing.
Yeah.
Which I actually have. It's a TV remote that looks like a Next Gen phaser.
My, is it really?
Yeah. But let me share with you, I have a lot of Star Trek the Motion Picture stuff.
Kerry Jackson, the Star Trek the Motion Picture apologist.
Let me show you the wildest bit of Star Trek memorabilia I have for the motion picture.
I can't believe you're showing this all now.
This is all on YouTube, but I want you to look closely at this.
It's a matchbook?
Matchbook.
Where do you get that?
I've got like 24 of these. And inside, you could send away for Star Trek crap. Like
Can
this
you
one
still?
has, I don't know. This one says it's an official Star Trek kite that you can send for. And there was one that had a jacket inside. And I got these at a bowling alley somewhere. There were just a stack of them there. And I said to the guy at the counter, "Could I have these?" He goes,
"Please, sir, may I have these matchbooks?"
This is back when smoking indoors was fine.
Yeah.
It was safe back then. And the guy said, "Yeah, the guy brings us free matchbooks all the time. Yeah, go ahead. I don't care."
You should try to send those in, see if you can get free shit.
I wonder. I saw an ad. There was, because I follow on Facebook, there's the Star Trek the Motion Picture Appreciation Society, which I follow.
With Kerry Jackson and 5 other members.
Exactly. And somebody found an old ad from, I think it was Starlog magazine, that had Star Trek the Motion Picture. It's a silver jacket. And I wanted it so badly, but it was $90. And
in 1979 money?
in that age where I was working at a dairy, I was the bottle washer at a dairy or something. I'm not.
Well, you have $90 now, don't you?
Well, yeah. But the jacket's really ugly. I had terrible taste back then. I was just excited because it was a Star Trek jacket. I look at it now, ugly. Oh, really ugly.
Oh, I'm so glad I saved my $90.
I did, however, send for the Battlestar Galactica jacket in Starlog magazine and was very disappointed to get it back. And it was green instead of brown, and it should have been brown instead of green.
Oh, like you got it from Wish. Oh,
yeah, it never said Battlestar Galactica. It said Colonial Warrior jacket, and I'm like,
Battleship Galactus.
Yeah, it was like that. Thing is, though, the buckles and the patches and everything, they were authentic. But
Oh.
this was clearly not a Battlestar Galactica check. It's like we could rip off this much, but not the color. I could never understand that. Anyway.
Oh, that's so funny.
All right,
I am a sucker for merch.
Well, this is very exciting. So next episode is Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and you're gonna hate it.
I mean, who knows? I was like all in on Star Trek: The Animated Series when we started. Like, who knows?
Yeah. So I'm just excited for you to see it. It's it's a guilty pleasure of mine, which I will explain in that episode why it's so important to me. And I'll show you some more merchandise so you can watch us here on YouTube. I've got a ton of it. We'll do fast show and tell, because I've got so much of it. But this is very exciting for the Space Show. I'm so happy. I hope
we'll do that episode and then you're going to be done.
No, we got to get some of the other Geek Show people to join us on this one because I want to get their takes on, pile on Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Go ahead. Go right ahead.
Alrighty. Well, until then, we will continue going where no man has gone before, but a lot of people have gone before. Thanks, everybody.